Hello guys, this is Olayeni, Dear Kolola Daniels, and this is another episode of Dear Ko Talks Law. And this episode is basically the part 2 of the Igbo Customary law relating to the law of succession. And in this video, we are going to be asking and answering the questions whether or not females can inherit properties. I am very sure that in my first video, I made an assertion that females cannot inherit properties. That is relating to wives who can only stay on their husband's property subject to good behavior or until she remarries or dies. And also relating to daughters who can stay on their father's property and cannot be sent out by the diokbala until she marries. Now, I made that assertion, but at the end of the video, I told you that this is only but the part 1. We are going to have the part 2 where we discuss the very important cases of Mojeku versus Mojeku. Also the case of Mojeku versus Iwuchuku, Ukeje versus Ukeje, and the case of Unyibo versus Anakwe. Now this is the video where we are going to discuss those cases in relation to the question of whether or not females can own properties. Also in this video we are going to also talk about illegitimate children. Can illegitimate children also own properties relating to their fathers? But before we move into answering these questions, if this is your first time of coming to my channel, please make sure that you click the subscribe button and also make sure that you click the notification bell so that anytime I release a video which is going to be of interest to you, you'll be one of the first set of people to watch that video. Now, before I also move into what we are going to talk about today, if you watched my first video, then you know I spoke about the Yabore app, and I want to talk about it again today. So guys, I want to introduce you guys to the Yabore app, and basically the Yabore app has all notes and materials that you need from year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 as a law student. So yes, it has contract law notes, it has evidence law note in year 5, it has land law note in year 4, it has every single note that you need and materials, and also it has past questions. So basically all you have to do is to download the note and the past question and then you read them offline. So I want you guys to also download this app and give me feedback on your interaction with this app. You can always find my number in the description box below. Thank you very much. The good thing about the Yabore app for me is that you can read your notes and just from there cross over to answering past questions and reading your notes and answering past questions and all of that. So instead of me to carry bulky textbooks as well as bulky notes, I can just read it on the app and still go to that same app to answer my past questions and all that. So it's really flexible and interactive for me. So I want you guys to download the app and also tell me what your experience is. Thank you very much. Now, we're talking about my last video. Online, under the comment section, very beautiful people decided to comment about their opinion on the Inarachi custom. Now, note that I called it Inarachi. I was corrected that it wasn't Inarachi, but Nrachi. So I'm sorry I did not pronounce it well. So the Nrachi custom. So we have Obi now who elucidated his view on this Nrachi custom. And also we have Patrick who told us about the Inhachi Unwai custom. I really appreciate you guys for dropping the comment in the comment section below. Thank you very much, as well as every other person who dropped their comment in the comment section below. So moving on to what we are supposed to talk about today, talking about the Igbo customary law in relation to whether women can inherit. Now, let us start with the Oriekpe custom. The first thing is that when a man does not have a male child, he might have 100 girls, but if he doesn't have a male child, the property will then go to the next male relative, that is the eldest. Do you understand? So let me try to draw a map. So we have a father here who is the grandfather. The grandfather gave birth to boy, 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 girl, girl. Do you understand? Now this one here gave birth to girl, 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 girl. Now the question is, the properties belonging to this man here, who is now a father, the properties belonging to this man who gave birth to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 girls, where does it go to? It goes to the eldest male relative in line, and the eldest male relative is this guy. Do you understand? So all the properties goes here. If this guy is late by that time, then it goes to this guy, who is the eldest. If this guy is late, then it comes to the eldest son of this guy, boy, because that becomes the next eldest relative in line until you find an eldest relative, and that is known as the Ori Ekpe custom. The Ori Ekpe custom talks about the next eldest relative in line. And in the case of Mojeku versus Mojeku, in that case, the father here gave birth to 2 children. Now, those 2 children were girls. And then they took the matter to court because the uncles of the girls were saying, oh, you cannot inherit properties. You can't inherit your father's properties. Then they decided to take the case to court. And then when they got to court, the trial court, that's the high court, the high court said, that is what the custom says. The Oriekpe custom says, take it to the uncle. Then they appeal to the Court of Appeal. Now, something very beautiful happened in the Court of Appeal. Now, the judge, Justice Nikitobi, you know there are always 3 judges in the Court of Appeal. One of the judges, that's Justice Nikitobi, said that the custom, that custom that says that women should not inherit property, that custom is not only discriminatory, but also it's against equity, fairness, and good conscience. That was the first time it was raised that a judge actually made this decision that a particular custom was against fairness, good conscience, and equity. But when the case was further appealed to the Supreme Court, the court, in that same case of Mojeku versus Mojeku, rejected the view of Justice Nikitobi, and then they held the Oriepe custom. They upheld the Oriepe custom from the trial court. You know, the trial court says, the Oriepe custom applies. Now, the Court of Appeal said no. Justice Nikitobi said no, it's against good conscience, fairness, and justice. Now, the further appeal to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said no, this is a custom and the custom should stand. That's the first case. The second case is the case of Mojeku versus Iwuchukwu. Now, in that case, one very important thing that you need to know is that a particular justice of the Supreme Court, Wifo JSC, in that case of Mojeku versus Iwuchukwu, he said, while tackling Justice Nikitobi of the Court of Appeal, he said that the fact that a custom is inconsistent with what the English law will refer to as equity, fairness, and good conscience does not mean that that custom is repugnant to equity, fairness, and good conscience. Why? Because these are the things that we have been practicing as a people. Do you understand? That's the basis for his judgment. These are the things that we have been practicing as a people from years back. So because the white men now came and told us that this is not this, that is not that, then we now want to begin to refine our tradition and say, oh, we must align our tradition with the white men. So according to Justice Wifo, he said no, it is not repugnant. And in that case of Mojeku versus Iwuchukwu, he also upheld the Oriepe custom. And also in the case of Estate of Agboruja, the court also held in that same case that the Oriepe custom would apply regardless, because it has been known to the Igbo Customary law since time immemorial. So I've cited 3 cases. The first case of Mojeku versus Mojeku, where the Court of Appeal said A, the Supreme Court said B. That B has been the tradition right from time and you cannot go against it. Also the case of Mojeku versus Iwuchukwu, where the Justice Wifo said the same thing. Now we have the case of Estate of Agboruja. Now in the very interesting case of Ukeje versus Ukeje, in that case the Supreme Court went against the Oriepe custom. Now, and also in the case of Onyabo versus Anakwe, the mother in Onyabo versus Anakwe gave birth to 6 girls, 6 different girls. And then the uncles said none of these 6 girls can inherit properties. Voila. So they now went to the court and then they appealed the case up to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court, the basis of the judgment of the Supreme Court was on discrimination. As at that time, we already had 1999 Constitution. And so the Supreme Court said, according to Section 42 of our Constitution, it kicks against discrimination of people based on gender. Since everybody has the right to own property. You cannot discriminate a person's right to own property because the person is a female. So, and do not forget that the Supreme Court, according to section 1 subsection 3, says that if any law is inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution, whether it be a written law or a custom, that law shall be void to the extent of its inconsistency. Now, it is argued and submitted that that particular law that says that women should not inherit is inconsistent with section 42 of the Constitution, that says that no person should be discriminated on their right to own properties just because of their gender. Do you understand? So in Oyabo versus Anakwe, the court said, no, you cannot say that she should not own property because she is a woman. And that is when you are talking about daughters. So in that case, the court said that yes, you can own properties. Also in the case of Ukeje versus Ukeje, that was the basis of the Supreme Court judgment in the case of Ukeje versus Ukeje. It's a very interesting case, and I would advise everybody here to please go and read the case if you want to learn more about this. Do not forget that all I've been saying so far is relating to daughters, trying to tell you that daughters can own properties from their fathers and they should not be discriminated from owning those properties all because they are females, according to those Supreme Court cases. But in the case of Nzekwe versus Nzekwe, the court held that a woman who is a wife of a deceased cannot own the property of the deceased. She can only stay in the property. So what she has is only possessory right without more. But daughters have both possessory rights and proprietary rights. Do you understand? So daughters cannot only possess but can also own the properties of their father. Do you understand? Now, in the latest case of Hiamadu versus Uwaimo, that is an Imo State High Court judgment where the father gave birth to only one girl, and now that girl, her uncle said that she cannot own the properties relating to the father. In fact, the uncles had started selling off the properties without the girl's consent because they did not regard her as someone who could own properties according to their custom. Now, the woman went to court, and then the court held that she has the right to her father's property as, stated by the Constitution, right against discrimination. Not only that, the court awarded 7 million naira in damages against the uncle for selling off the properties without the girl's permission, which means that the court is actually taking full force against discrimination of women, which is actually a good thing. But like I said in my former video, the reason the Igbo people say that girls should not inherit is because when they get married, whether to a Yoruba man or to an Hausa man, they tend to take away properties belonging to the Igbo men and give it to those Hausa men and those Yoruba men. That is number one. Number two, imagine that a girl has inherited properties from her father, and also imagine that when her husband dies, she inherits properties from her husband. It means she's inheriting from two places, and like they say, equity leans against double portion, because then she's inheriting from her father and she's inheriting from her husband. So please, I want to know your opinion about this new law. Do you think that it can stand in Igbo land, or do you think that the court is saying their own while those people in Igbo land will practice their own? Do you think that the court can actually apply this law on these people, especially those people who are not conversant with how the Supreme Court is so high and mighty, as those Igbo traditional rulers who still adjudicate on cases relating to the community? That is number one. Number two, now let's just talk about the illegitimate children. Now, the law is that when a man recognizes a particular illegitimate child, by illegitimate I mean a child born out of wedlock, when a man recognizes that child before his death, then that child is eligible to the properties, same way those born in wedlock are eligible to the properties, especially when the child is a male. But do not forget, women can also inherit now. The first case that supports that is the case of Olude versus Iviosu, where the court held that the moment a man accepts this child or a particular child during his lifetime, then the question of paternity cannot come up during trial. The question of illegitimacy cannot come up because you already accepted that he's the owner of this child. That child shares the same responsibility as well as the same inheritance as the legitimate children. The second and final case is the case of Owodinjo versus Owodinjo. I don't know if I pronounced that well, but still, the court in the case reiterated the fact that the moment a father already accept an illegitimate child, then that child shares the same inheritance and is also at par with those children that are born in wedlock. So I hope I've been able to explain all this concept of inheritance under the Igbo Customary law. In case you have a question or you have a contribution to these rules and laws, please make sure that you drop them in the comment section below. I would like to have an intellectual conversation with you guys. Thank you very much. I remain Olayeni, dear Kolola Daniels.